This is Prep Period, an all-sports podcast by the Ventura County Star and the people at VCS Press.
Hello and welcome. You know, Joe Curley has his camera all sorts of messed up. This is my bad. Sorry, Joe. The technical difficulties continue here. 1 second.
We'll get the hang of it.
Tell the people, Joe, as I'm beginning to put your face on camera. Tell your people what you've been up to this week. Anything new in the Curley household?
Just working my tail off. We got starting to learn all about these teams, and we're going to test this week our what we what we thought coming into the year versus what we've learned through the first 3 weeks of the season. Getting into that fall flow of football weekend and prep all week, and I'm holding my breath because we're fostering a dog and hoping the dog doesn't bark, which I think is what you were going for.
There's the real info from you this week. How's that been so far?
All good.
Is that the first dog you guys have had? Because I know you have you've got the cats.
First dog, and since we had a dog for a very long time that we lost a couple years ago. So it's a very it's a kind of sentimental time this week as we foster Maddie, who is part bulldog, part I believe fox terrier. So very interesting looking dog. She's been very well behaved, and she's going to make someone a very good dog.
Amazing. We can see your face now live on YouTube. So we can restart the intro. Hello. My name is Dominic Massimino. The guy you can now see next to me is Joe Curley. We are sports reporters here at the Ventura County Star. Exciting fourth episode. I can't believe we've done 4 of these already. I'm pretty stoked about it. But as you can tell, we're still working through the growing pains of hosting a podcast. But yeah, Joe, just I guess we had a lot of kind of top teams play each other this week. Just what can you tell me about? I guess you kind of had the marquee game this week.
Yeah, obviously Newbury Park and Pacifica, our preseason number 1 ranked team versus our current number 1 ranked team, and it was I think really through 3 weeks the trend in Ventura County football has just been the proliferation of fantastic quarterbacks. You had multiple awesome quarterback matchups. Taylor Lee and Brady Smigel were absolutely phenomenal on Friday. Taylor Lee now leading the Southern section with 990 yards. Passing through 3 games, really helped out there by Elijah Royster, who had 5 touchdowns, including 4 touchdown catches. And Pacifica kind of knocking off Newbury Park 56-35, kind of the other side of the coin from last year when Newbury Park shut them down 36-3. So, we like it when, arguably our 2 best teams or 2 of our best teams in the county play each other in non-league if they're not in the same league. Gives us kind of a preview of what the postseason might look like. And I think we were kind of, I think the argument off that result is Pacifica is the Newbury Park of this season, and Newbury Park is the Pacifica of this season, where, Pacifica is probably going to be our number 1 ranked team by the CalPreps data going into the postseason now, depending on obviously what happens in the remaining 7 weeks. But they're looking like they're in that position, whereas Newbury could be one of those teams that we've seen in the last couple of years, like St. Bonaventure and Pacifica. Newbury could be a team that's a couple divisions down, but really make a deep run and I don't know, maybe go as far or further as they went last year, just in a lower division.
For sure. Yeah. And, the game I was at was also a fun one. I'd been kind of, really hoping that I could go see Fillmore sometime early this season, after kind of spending a lot of time. I saw them at a passing tournament over the summer and that kind of thing. And it was cool to get out there and see them in person, see what kind of the energy is like with that team. They got out to a 20-0 start early against Buena. I was kind of, expecting it was going to be, a hard fought game. But yeah, they kind of opened that one up in a very solid way, kind of surprise the Bulldogs a little bit. They end up getting, the pretty lopsided victory. It's the first time that they have, that Fillmore has been 3-0 since 2019. First win over Buena since 1961, was it? 62? And yeah, I think earlier this season, the win over Royal.
Somewhere in the 60s.
Yeah, earlier this season, the win over Royals, first one since 68. And I know that date for sure. So lots of fun energy around the Flashes this season. There was, I will say, in this game, the big early deficit kind of put Buena behind. There was a moment at the kind of, that spanned from the very end of the first half into the very beginning of the second, where you have Tyler Jate, nails a 38-yarder to make it 20-3 right at the end of the first half. And then Jackson Roberts, breaks off a 40-yard touchdown run, and all of a sudden it's 20-10. And you get an interception. The first interception Nate Perez has thrown all season gets returned deep back into Fillmore territory. And it looks like, oh man, this is going to, this could be cut to a, 20-17 lead really early in this third quarter. But the very following play, this was kind of the story of the game, and it was my lead in that gamer, was the very following play, Saul Fraga, who is the target on the interception that Perez threw, gets up and pulls down a pick on the very following play. And from then on, all the energy was kind of sucked out of that Buena sideline, and they go on, Fillmore goes on to win big. But yeah, there were like little, for lack of a better word, flashes of kind of, you see a little bit of the blueprint with Buena. They're just kind of trying to put it together. Their playmakers in Christian Quezada and Jackson Roberts looked really good. Just a question of kind of trying to iron out the more, basic details for them of just, not missing assignments. And that was kind of what Coach Bolin talked about after the game. So, but yeah, Fillmore looks good, man. I'm excited for you to see them in person. We can compare notes.
Yeah, Saul Fraga, too. I think he's got a couple touchdowns offensively, couple interceptions defensively. Maybe one of the names to know as a two-way player. Kind of making a name for himself. But yeah, that was. I almost wrote about him this week for my my notebook. Instead, I wrote about this game we're about to just mention.
Yeah, tell me what you learned kind of making calls on that game. It sounds like it was a pretty awesome one.
Yeah, so Thousand Oaks Agoura, would have been the game of the week, I think, if it wasn't for that Newbury Pacifica game, just because you had that great storyline of the former Thousand Oaks quarterback teammates playing each other. Jackson Taylor wins the job. Gavin Gray transfers to Agoura. Now he's back at Thousand Oaks. I believe it was homecoming. Someone said it was homecoming. It was obviously homecoming for Gavin Gray playing against his buddies. And I think everybody kind of comes out of this game feeling good. T.O. gets, after having a couple fumbles early in the first quarter and allowing Agoura to jump ahead 10-0. T.O. Responded. They took a lead just before half after Agoura took the lead back. Jackson Taylor threw a beautiful touchdown pass to Luke Sullivan, dropped it in the bucket. Coach Anderson, mentioned that it was the best throw he had seen Jackson Taylor make in the short time he's been coaching him. That's in the notebook. And then Gavin Gray drove Agoura within 10 yards of winning the game. They ended up, it's funny. Dustin Croik kicked himself for the decision to kick the field goal, which ultimately was blocked by Caden Glover, deciding the game. But I mean, Luke Boussier has been phenomenal. It wasn't so much about the personnel; it was about, in high school, don't leave it up to a field goal. But I said, I mean, 27-yard field goal, go and win the game. You just got to tip your cap to Caden for blocking it. So Gray was 14 of 24 for 232 and 2 touchdowns. Taylor was 20 of 24 for 195 and 3 touchdowns. Just once, second straight week, Thousand Oaks has won a showcase of 2 of the top quarterbacks around. And they've got a lot more quarterbacks on that schedule once they get the league play, with Schmeigel and Westlake and Calabasas and everything that league is right now. So just really excited, I think, for both those teams going forward. And one of the things Coach Kroik mentioned was that you're 1-2 with 2 losses over teams in a league above you. It kind of, the way the system is now, everything's kind of perfect for them. They've got the they were 1 play away from beating a really good team. Gives them a lot of confidence going forward into league and beyond. And I think it kind of steadied the ship after not a great performance against Westlake the previous week.
For sure. Yeah, like you mentioned, it's weird to come out of a game like this feeling more impressed with both teams even than you were going in. You know what I mean? Like, Agura pushes a team that we have ranked, I think, number 4, and somewhere near the top of that Conejo
even
Coast
higher
team.
now.
Yeah, even higher now. And so that kind of raises their their kind of abilities in our mind. And then TO gets gritty and gets a 1-point win with a game-saving play from Caden Glover. It's like, it's weird to come out of a game, between 2 teams like this and be, feel even better on the way out than you did, going into the game. But that's pretty cool. Even down to the quarterbacks, like who can we say won that quarterback duel? They both played phenomenally.
Yeah, they both put their teams in a position to win the game, and it was ultimately decided on special teams, which is, happens sometimes. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers last week, and he had an incredible game, all kinds of stats, and it took a 60-yard field goal to decide that game. Steelers Jets. Sorry to bring it up. Thousand Oaks fans are going to want to look at my poll this week, as are Moorpark. We're about to talk about Moorpark. Go ahead and Moorpark's 3-0.
Yeah,
they're way up our poll this week.
Yeah, so Moorpark's another one of those teams that I feel like, there are certain teams that kind of just stick with you a little bit because, like, you cover something about them in the off season or the preseason, or in my case, it was, they were my first. They played in the first game that I covered this year, and so they're always going to kind of be in the back of my mind. And yeah, they're 3-0. They've gotten 3, strong victories against, pretty solid seeming teams. It's funny. I had been kind of thinking, because, the message after that first game, the win over Rio Mesa, when kind of special teams was a big factor, and, running the ball is a big factor. And Coach Dearborn says, we're bringing back, old school Moorpark football. We're going to run rush for 300 yards. And, that's going to be kind of our mentality. I'd been thinking, the ground game's looking really strong with Wyatt Davidson and Garrett Gray and Angel. Is it Sepulveda or Castaneda? There's 2 Angels out there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
2 good Angel running backs out there. But looking back through this 3-game stretch, they've the win over Birmingham was this week. Who was their second win? Centennial and Bakersfield.
Bakersfield.
They threw for they threw for, I want to say, 200 yards, 200 plus yards in that game. So it's not just the one thing. They've kind of started to prove, that offense has kind of started to prove it can do a little bit of everything. Logan Moon, this most recent game, we saw he didn't get the start. Troy Reyes got the start in that first game of the season, and we were thinking, what's going to happen with Logan Moon, this kind of run first quarterback, and he makes the most of his opportunity in this game. has 5 carries for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was in our Player of the Week poll, if I'm not mistaken. So, they have these weapons kind of, coming out of the woodwork over there. One person I really want to single out is defensive end Cade Hunter. I think he's going to be one of those players that shows up in our midseason top 100. He had sack, 3 TFLs as part of his 9 total tackles, a forced fumble, and a hurry in this win. And that comes a week after he had 3 TFLs, a pair of sacks, and a hurry in the win over Centennial last week. So he is on a tear, just making plays for the defense.
Yeah, Derry hasn't posted the defensive version of the stats yet, but I do know that Hunter is tied with Simi Valley star Isaac Simpson in the area for most sacks, 4.0 sacks for both of them. They're both tied for 10th in the Southern section. And there was one little cool note about Moorpark that I dug up working on the notebook this week. Davis Benson and Evan Brady give the Musketeers top 12 returners in the Southern section in both kickoffs and punts, respectively. So, you get a team that obviously has been very good defensively. They obviously can run the ball. They've showed us a little bit of the passing game, and they're making an impact in the special team. So, you can make an argument that Moorpark's maybe our most balanced team so far.
Yeah, definitely the defense that I have seen that's impressed me the most so far. They're pretty fearsome on that side of the ball. So yeah, keep an eye out for those rankings this week. You'll be interested to see what you find. And
yeah, I'm pretty TO and Moorpark are the highest they've ever been in my rankings since I took it over from Warren.
That's awesome. And same as last week when we had kind of a theme of the week of the shutout was last week. This is kind of the week where we're starting to see kind of some polarizing, with unbeaten teams
separation.
Some separation. Yeah. With unbeaten teams and winless teams. Just 3 games in, we have 6 local teams are undefeated, and 8 are winless. So, but Pacifica, TO, Moorpark, Westlake, Calabasas, and Fillmore have yet to lose a game, and then we got 8 teams still looking for one.
That is one in every league except for. That's someone in every league except for Channel and Citrus Coast. No, except for Citrus Coast.
Yeah, because we got Channel with Moorpark.
Yeah,
Moorpark. 4 of the 5 leagues. Yeah.
And then the 8 winless teams. Do we want to say it? Are you going to go through the 8 winless teams?
I purposefully just said there were 8. But
okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah,
we can leave it at that. And that is one from every league's represented there. There's 3 in the Citrus Coast. There's 3 winless teams in the Citrus Coast, which makes sense.
Yeah, and am I? No, I think it's 3 in the Channel too. Oak Park, Oxnard, and
3 in the Channel. Wow. Yeah. Yep, you're right.
We're gonna get to that when we talk in second period. I'll have some thoughts on that for what we're gonna talk about then.
So everybody in the Tri-Valley has a win.
Yeah,
that's the only league where everybody's got to win. Tri-County.
Tri-County.
Did I call it Tri-Valley?
Don't mess me up with the leagues, man. I'm just starting to get this. I'm in our group chat calling it the Coastal Canyon League. I'm calling it the Tri-County Athletic Association. Joe's
Dude, the worst part is you're finally going to get it right, and they're going to change all the names next year. So it's just you're like Sisyphus over here with the league names.
Well put. You wanna take us through the Deuce's stat of the week since this time we got to call it the Curly stat of the week this week.
Well, yeah, we'll still give Deuce credit because he would have come up with it if he wasn't on vacation. Pacifica quarterback Taylor Lee is up to 14 touchdowns and no interceptions through 3 games. Turner Lachey of Lehman Catholic in Ohio is the only quarterback in the country who has thrown for more touchdowns than Lee without throwing an interception. He's thrown 16 touchdowns. So Taylor Lee is in some kind of heady through 3 games is found some heady heights. He has basically a perfect passer rating, which puts him He's leading Southern section in yardage, leading the Southern section in passing rating, essentially leading the country. I don't think you can have a better passer rating than the 168.2 he has, something like that. And he's been ridiculous. So, and he just picked up an offer from Cal Poly.
Oh, wow.
Which, by the way, has a local at quarterback in Ty Diefenbach, who from Agoura High, who originally committed to Pittsburgh and then transferred to Cal Poly. He was had a great first game and then played against Utah last week. So pretty cool for all our guys at Cal Poly. I think there's like 7, 8, 9 local players on Cal Poly, including Savion Taylor from Pacifica, and we don't have to go through Jake East from Agoura. So
yeah.
Anyway,
I just wanted to
digress.
say, I wanted to say too, you did a great job in your gamer, I think, of capturing kind of how awesome of a story he is. Just in that he stayed home. Like I covered so many Pacifica games last year, like later on in the season, and saw him ready on the sidelines, throwing the ball with Dom Duran, getting him prepared. And Coach Moon said, I think he gave you a cool quote that was like, most kids in that situation, in today's day and age, are leaving, and he stuck around, and look what he's doing now. It's a cool thing, and also nice hearing from him what his giving credit where credit's due to Brady, and saying, hey, this is a guy I've looked up to for a long time. It sounds like it was cool for him to go up against him and have his team get the better of him this time around.
Yeah, I mean, Brady Smigel is statistically the best quarterback in the history of this county. I think best quarterback I've ever covered. And, he was going up against that Pacifica defense. And so, and it was a huge moment for that Newbury Park offense, where I think they're starting now to find kind of footing underneath them and really starting to look like kind of the Newbury Park offense that we've seen in previous years. He's in Matthew Curry. He's found a little bit of an outlet for the first time, not having Shane Rosenthal, just adjusting to kind of their new normal. And, against the awesome Pacifica defense, they went up and down the field, but that Pacifica offense was just unstoppable. They scored on all 8 possessions, and I thought it was cool. Taylor Lee having what was a huge moment for him, and then able to kind of step out and say, hey, it was amazing not just to do this against anybody, but to do this, against the team run by, the best quarterback around. So, if you haven't read it yet, go to vcstar.com and read my gamer, which includes interviews with Joe Schmeigel, Taylor Lee, Mike Moon, and yeah.
Good plug. we gotta up our plugs for all of our stuff. We gotta keep doing that. Now's a good time. Just before we, hear that second period bell ring, to give you guys another quick plug for our, awesome newspaper, the Ventura County Star. So, all the news you need to know from the sports, that Joe and I are covering, up to the minute breaking news, investigative stories, restaurant coverage. There's so much more. I mean, I've talked about those things before, but there's so much more going on at the VC Star, and, tells you everything you need to know about what's going on in your community. We're the best show in town. So go on, subscribe at vcstar.com/subscribe. It's only $1 for the first month, I believe, still right now. So heck of a deal. And while you're at it, go subscribe to this podcast. We are live on YouTube right now. The tag's www.youtube.com/@VCSpreps. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. This episode of the podcast will be up later this evening. And go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at VCS Preps as well for all the up-to-date coverage.
And if you got Blue Sky, building out that Blue Sky,
the Blue Sky
account, hopefully at some point we'll start using the TikTok account that we've registered for the kids.
We can only make so many jokes about you doing TikTok dances before we actually make it happen. So people are going to feel like they're getting cheated. Awesome. So, I'm kind of stoked for this segment, in part because I feel like I did a pretty good job, with a 3-game sample size. But how are we feeling about our league picks for projected kind of finishes? We did projected finishes for all of our leagues in our league previews. Joe did 2, I did 3. You want to start at the top, start in the Marmani League, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, when we do our season previews, we always at the very end include projected finishes, and that's always a lot of fun because that's where you get the text messages from the coaches. Fifth, really fifth? That's when you provide the bulletin board material and
Yep.
And have to answer for your bad picks. And so we're gonna take a little bit of a moment here just to kind of ask ourselves how we feeling. And I had the Marmani League. I picked the order that I picked the teams in was Oaks Christian, Pacifica, Simi Valley, St. Bonaventure, Bishop Diego, Camarillo. Obviously when you're talking about the top league, you're really just, there's thin margins between all of that. And I think I picked St. Bonaventure 5th last year and got some crap for that. And it was like, that's a team that could win the league. 5 of the 6 teams in this league can win the league. I think it's clear right now that Pacifica is the objective favorite to win it. So, they could prove me wrong. Oaks Christian, I think, still has a great chance to win it. A lot will come down to that game where the 2 teams play, I believe, the first weekend of October. Simi Valley and St. Bonaventure kind of in the middle there. I think Bishop Diego is maybe the biggest miss right now. They're 3-0. That's a team that could win the league. So, like I said, kind of thin margins between all 6 of those teams. But, I think it's pretty clear as we sit 3 weeks into the season that, Pacifica is probably the favorite. Right? Did you say over Oaks Christian?
Yes.
Certainly the way they've played so far, but I guess you can't count Oaks out with all the talent they have. And then Bishop 3-0 is looking like they're in that mix, and certainly Simi and Bonnie could fix some things and jump into that no problem.
Fun little peek behind the curtain Oaks Christian note. I was in the office the other day, and noted sports fan and incredibly talented investigative reporter Tony Biasotti turns to me. And he asks, he's like, so what's going on with Oaks Christian? I thought they're supposed to be like, this incredible, program, and they got blown out by Sierra Canyon. And I was like, just wait until league starts, wait until they start, they get all their guys, and, they're playing not the, number 5 ranked team in the nation or whatever Sierra Canyon was going into that game. I think they're like one of those teams that, I don't want to call them like a sleeping giant, but we know what they are, and they have a lot of guys returning from last year's team. I think they're going to figure it out. It's just a question of kind of where, in that top half they're going to finish. That's kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah. I mean, I think it says a lot about how well Pacifica is playing and how deep they are that, you would consider Pacifica as a potential team that could beat Oaks Christian. So, yeah, that's one we get to look forward to for sure.
For sure. And then Conejo Coast League, I was looking at kind of what your, projections were and what, has happened so far in this league. And it's like, you push back on this if you feel like it, but so much of what we heard, what we have heard and what we've, written ourselves about the Marmani League is, you are the best of the best. These teams are, the very best football talent that we have, that you can assemble in a league in this area. And so far, like, the Conejo Coast League's looking pretty freaking deep. Like, we have 4 teams, in this league that I feel like are kind of in the mix among our, top 6, 7 rankings. Like, what do you make of the comparison between those 2 this year?
I mean, just that point shows that the athletic directors and principals have really made an error in how they've divided the teams up. They continue to use old data, which I think makes this stale. I think you could argue Newbury Park would have won the Marmani League last year. They almost played Oaks Christian in the Division II final. That would have been, we don't know. what would have happened? Could they have beaten Simi last year? I think, um, I certainly think you can argue either way, and I don't think I'm being ridiculous by saying that Newbury. I think a lot of people think Newbury could have won the Romani last year. They would have been in that league had the athletic directors taken current data rather than year-old data. And in the new system going forward, in the new configuration that starts next year, they once again took old data. And I don't want to spend too much time on it, but you can go to my story on the releaguing, just type releaguing Joe Curley into our website, and pull it up. And I explain why there were reasons why they didn't want to use, they basically didn't want to wait a year and schedule their non-league games later. So, I mean, what's more important, getting the league configurations right or optimal, or being able to schedule your non-league, schedule out? So I think they made that decision. I think it's part of the reason why. And then the other thing on the top end there, you've got Calabasas and Westlake were just in the Romani League. So you've got Calabasas and Westlake are two teams that are kind of bouncing back from their experience of being in the Romani League. Right. Santa Barbara has been a very good program, and is kind of slowly building. If they had a quarterback this year, I think you would put them up against anybody around. And I think TO has shown, that TO Newbury game is going to be a massive game in that league. I picked the order of teams in the Conejo that I picked was Newbury, TO, Santa Barbara, Westlake, Calabasas, Rio. I almost picked Westlake third. I had them third, and I switched them with Santa Barbara because I didn't think it was fair to Santa Barbara for being so successful.
Yeah.
Recently, and then to grab an 0-10 team and automatically raise them over. So, I think there are 5 teams that could win that league, depending on how well Newbury kind of figures out some of what it's ailing defensively. TO Newbury is going to be a great game. I think Westlake has a puncher's chance against both their Conejo Valley rivals. Santa Barbara's got to be in that mix. The question is Calabasas? I mean, I had this conversation with Jim Bittner, the Rio coach, over the weekend. You could see in my notebook, I mentioned some of the issues that Rio Mesa has right now. And the main issue is they're in this league. They're a very young team that's kind of refreshing a little bit. And now they're looking up at their schedule the rest of the year, and they got to play the 5 teams that are in this league, and that's not going to be fun for Rio Mesa. So certainly they're one of the better programs around and belong in this league. But this year, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them. But I think you could make an argue for the other 5 teams to win this league, and I don't think I want to make any changes from how I rated them. Although just to say it's super tight.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I mean, I haven't seen Westlake or Calabasas play in person, but just based on their what the numbers are for them, I think maybe they could sneak ahead of Santa Barbara now with the data that we have, but we'll see.
I think it's on skill position talent. Westlake and Calabasas are up there with the other teams. Where I question is, and what we're going to find out, is whether or not they're strong enough up front to make that happen, to stick with that. And let's look at what's the current Cal Preps. The Cal Preps currently is TO. No, Newbury's still ahead of TO by 2. They're
2
right
spots
next to each other.
Yeah.
And then Santa Barbara, then Calabasas, Westlake,
within 3 spots of each other.
And so then, you've got these
pockets. Then Rio's 161.
Yeah, so similar, but yeah, there's all to play for. Again, we're doing this after 3 weeks, but I don't think I would change anything. Yeah, I don't think I would change anything. I think TO's got to beat Newbury before you really pick them to win that league.
Yeah. Got to see it to believe it. So the Channel League, very interesting. I do have thoughts and feelings about kind of where I had some of these teams and where they are now. I mean, the big storyline that we had coming in the Channel League was we think it's going to be a 2-team race. And I think that has been so far the evidence has kind of, borne that out. Like, Ventura and Moore Park are going to be the two teams fighting for this Channel League title this year. We only have like a little bit of data, one fewer, game for Ventura. They have the loss to TO, and they have a, pretty convincing win over Rio Mesa, their second game. But I think probably if I were doing this, redoing this again, starting now, we would have Moore Park, up high just from what we've seen. But I think they're close. Like, I think that's going to be another awesome, game this year. The real question, which is, the same question we had coming in also, is who the heck is going to be the third playoff team out of the Channel League this year? We have, Buena, I picked them third, and they're the only team with a win so far from that group. So, Oak Park's 0-3. I had written down in my notes they might be the 0-3 team outside Simi Valley that I'm like the most excited about or the most high on, because they've done like good things in their losses.
They've had a lot of big plays and they've competed. The Agura and Saugus are two good teams that they've lost to. So, I think Oak Park has had moments. I think it's a good way to put it. They certainly look like a dangerous team. I read about Oxnard in the notebook this week, and they're, really at a low ebb, but if they can get their quarterback back, if they get some of the other injured players back, they're certainly in that position. And then, can the Buena running back lead them to the playoffs?
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, in that Fillmore game, like you see what could happen if things get fixed. It's just a question of like, are they going to be able to, do all that in time for league? Like, yeah, Oak Park's quarterback was 19 for 25 for 213 yards, 3 touchdowns in this 20-point loss to Brentwood. And that it's tough seeing that stat line and kind of seeing what the final score of the game was, but they're doing, like we were told, they're going to do some creative, cool things on offense, and he's going to be a breakout player. And that's also been kind of, props to Coach Webb for, telling us the truth there, giving us that tidbit, because he's been great so far. So basically, yeah, the Channel League, I mean, we have the same questions that we had coming in, and, if you could read that preview today and kind of feel the same amount of prepared for what's going to happen in league as you do now.
Good work, Dom. Dom killing it. Mr. Channel.
Oh, goodness. Is that the nickname now?
No. All right, let's move on to Tri-County.
Tri-County, yeah. So, Agura's 1-2, but they still belong on top of these, on top of the projected league finish, I think, here, which is where we had them. They pushed TO super, super hard, like we talked about. I think they look great. They would still be at the number 1 spot. The changes I would make, so we had Agura number 1, San Marcos number 2, Fillmore number 3, Dos Pueblos 4, Santa Paula 5, and Hueneme 6. I still remember you shooting me a text and saying this is going to come back to bite you a little bit, these some of these Santa Barbara teams up high, but you were right. I gotta give you the
we're not there yet. I was just maybe I'm siding with Fillmore and Santa Paula, but but again, it's tight in the middle of that league. But certainly Fillmore has shown that they might be competitive.
I think Fillmore, again, this is, we've only seen 3 games, but from what we've seen, I think Fillmore is a pretty clear number 2 now. And Santa Paula's played great so far too. They have, the one loss against a good team. I think it was La Cañada they lost to.
La Cañada, yeah. Their third loss to them in like the last 5 years.
Right. That's what it was. Yeah. So, both San Marcos and Dos Pueblos are 1-2. So, I think, we gave San Marcos the number 2 spot in part because they pushed Agura so hard last season. It was, came down to the last score of the game to decide it. But yeah, I think Fillmore's already won more games this year than they won the entire season last year.
Yeah.
Or weren't they?
I think as many.
I think
they were 3-7.
Oh, I thought they were 2-8. Maybe I was wrong.
Check.
But yeah,
either way, point taken.
Yeah. So they look great. And Hueneme picks up their first win this past week in the rivalry game against Channel Islands. I think.
Oh, you were right. 2-8. Yeah. I'm wrong.
Wow, you don't hear that often.
When I'm wrong, I say it.
So yeah, it'll be cool to see. I keep looking forward to that Fillmore Santa Paula game because that was like one of the coolest environments I'd seen my first year here. So hopefully I get to cover that one. I think it'll be competitive again this year.
You may have to arm wrestle.
I think I got you. I think I got you. Crazy story for later on the pod, or not on the pod, off the pod. Remind me to tell you about arm wrestling.
Crazy Tom arm wrestling story. Okay, Rocky Balboa, or okay, Sylvester Stallone over the top.
So let's keep it pushing to the Citrus Coast League once again. I mean, I gotta chill on the patting myself on the back, but we had Grace number 1, Nordhoff 2, Del Sol 3, Carp 4, CI 5, and Santa Clara 6. So I think Grace again has proven, they're another team I'm super high on, has proven that they deserve that number 1 spot. They, you know, the line we had is losing LaSecla won't stop the Lancers, and that, you know, Riley Williams has proven that to be true. And shout out to the brother Jake Williams, who had the game-winning touchdown this week. It was the William brothers all the way for Grace this week. And I still think Nordhoff looks like the number 2 in this league, but it is really going to be super competitive between
they'll
the
decide
next 5
it
teams
on the field for sure. Well, yeah, Grace and Nordhoff will decide it on the floor, on the field. And, you know, I think we got to mention Nordhoff coming off a school record 76 points.
Yes.
Last week we didn't even mention it in the first segment. You know, the Rangers really are they look good on. It's not just like they're playing lesser opposition. Like, they look good on film. Like, they're doing a really good job. And I think they're certain that Nordhoff Grace game, I think, is going to be gangbusters. And then I think it's similar to the Channel, where it's like, who's going to emerge as the third playoff team in this league? Because you've got Santa Clara, Channel Islands, and Del Sol winless, and Carp's only win is against one of those teams.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, Carp's interesting because they've played one game and it's against, you know, it's against a future, you know, a league opponent later on down the road. So it gives us a little bit of information. But yeah, who knows? I mean, we kind of gotta wait and see. I'm still curious to see which of our new teams to this league in Del Sol and Santa Clara is going to get their first win first. Who's going to be the one to kind of, you know, crack that and sort of break into the win column there. Do you have any thoughts on that from what you've heard?
Just that the addition of Santa Clara and Del Sol makes the Citrus Coast kind of a legitimate league. It's great that there's 6 teams in there and that there's a whole bunch of opportunities for all those very similar schools to kind of get moving and get some wins and get some positive momentum. I love you know, what that league looks like right now. And, you know, I'm looking forward to one of those or 2 of those teams kind of popping and having a really positive season once they get going.
I love it. All right. I think that is everything for third period. We're moving right through the school day. It's crazy. Let's take a little peek forward. Let's look at week 3. You dubbed this the week of the big non-league test for a lot of our local schools. We have St. Bonaventure's playing Modesto Christian, Central Catholic from my old NorCal brain is going. Modesto Christian was a big basketball school up there. Playing Central Catholic at home. Simi Valley is playing Cathedral. Oaks is playing Santa Margarita. Newbury Park is playing St. Pius, St. Matthias, and Moore Park's playing Santa Barbara. So all, you know, kind of big games. Anybody you want to talk about first, Joe?
Just, you know, Santa Margarita is one of the bigger stories this year in Southern California. Carson Palmer, who I covered the game where he became the you know, Heisman Trophy front runner against Notre Dame 20 years ago or whenever that was, because Kerry Covert from Wainimi was one of his big receivers. They're ranked number 5 by the LA Times, so, you know, that's a huge test for Oaks Christian. What was the other? And then, Cathedral is a good challenge for Simi. We'll get Simi's coming off the bye. We'll see what they look like, see if they can kind of get their first win, get in a positive moment. If you're 0-3 and you're coming off a bye, Cathedral's not the easiest
not the team you necessarily want to play. Yeah.
But again, you can call it the week of the big non-league test. You can call it the week of scheduling a loss to help you in Cal Preps, because that's what this looks like to me. And then we don't know. You dug up some stuff on Central Catholic.
I have. So
take that?
Yeah, this is a fun kind of week of the world of high school football in California it's a small one. I've learned. I thought I was out in the middle of nowhere. And this week we have in my last job, and this week we have two games with some connections to the Sonora, California, the town of 5,000 where I was living before here. St. Bonaventure's hosting Central Catholic, who is, they're a Modesto area, Sac Joaquin section powerhouse. They've been really good for a long time. They're coached by Roger Canepa, who's the all-time winningest coach in Sac Joaquin section history as of, I think, last year is when he broke through. He is from the town of Sonora, so it's a big name back in my old work area.
Stomping grounds.
My old stomping grounds. They are 0-3 for the first time since 2019, but they're ranked, I think it's number 2. Yeah, number 2 in the Modesto Bees local rankings. Shout out to Quentin Hamilton, my guy up there. They've played a really tough non-league schedule so far. So they're maybe not the Central Catholic of, seasons past, but they're going to be tough. So I think that should be a good game. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a for sure loss for St. Bonaventure, though. I mean, I think that's going to be a tough one, but a winnable game.
Cool.
And then, Newbury Park is playing. Is it St. Pius, St. Matthias? Is that the?
I think you're closer than you were the first time.
Yeah, I think I went.
I'm not going to try because I'll butcher it myself.
Yeah, so they beat that team last year 44-14. I think the score was, and that team was kind of the poster child for. There were a lot of kind of angry. I don't know if angry is the right word, but articles about that team making the playoffs as I think they were 1-10 in the regular season, 1-9. They maybe
1-9.
I think they played an extra game before the kind of
I didn't even know that was possible. Let's check. But yeah, St. Pius. We could just call them St. Pius.
St. Pius. We'll go with St. Pius. So
they're from Downey.
Yeah, they make it all the way to the D4A state championship game, which they lost to.
Oh, that's the team.
None other than Sonora High. Sonora's getting a lot of play on this episode of the podcast.
Yeah. I still find it hilarious that you covered 2 high school football teams up there, and they both won state championships right after you left.
Yeah, so I covered one of the 2 games because they, it's a very small newsroom.
They needed help.
They only had one guy who replaced me, so they had 2 state championship games to cover and 1 reporter. So that's a fun one. But yeah, so that's a kind of a fun note for that game. I don't know much about them this season. Don't know whether they're going to be a big test for Newbury, but we'll see.
Yeah, once again, Newbury's test is themselves. They got to get better defensively, and I think offensively, last week was a really good showing for them to, put up 35 points against a really good Pacifica defense, and Brady Smigel not throwing a pick despite being sacked 6 times and being under a lot of pressure. So, I think that's another big moment for, another chance for Newbury to make some strides defensively.
You want to talk a little bit, just as a super short look at the Cam Ventura game about, the background there that was in your notebook, kind of a sad, but a kind of an awesome story about.
Yeah. So we're reporting that Dylan Nicholson, the sophomore starting quarterback for Camarillo, is going to be out for the rest of the year. He's tore multiple knee ligaments. I think he tweeted out. I think he reported himself.
ACL, MCL, he said.
And that was in the Rio game, which was not last weekend. It was 2 weekends ago. So apparently, it took them some time to diagnose, and he was practicing and he was feeling well enough to play. And so he literally played last weekend, the 30-27 loss to Saugus. And so, and I think what they figured, that he went through it and he performed well, and they almost won the game. He threw 2 touchdown passes and ran for another, and he was moving around. But I think what they figured was, the kid's a sophomore, let's not push this. Let's go ahead and have the surgery and get him back before, hopefully before next season starts. So, and they play at Ventura. Camarillo Ventura is always a great non-league matchup. The Cougars are coming off their first 200-yard rushing game in 3 years, which is a big deal. Tim Garcia mentioned that to me over the weekend. I should mention Brad Barlow of the Barlow is a big football name around here. He's taking over as the Camarillo head starting quarterback. So Brad Barlow, he's a junior. Related to Heidi Barlow, who was the St. Bonaventure softball star. We go through all the Barlows. There's a whole bunch of them. So, but a lot of Camarillo and St. Bonaventure there. Rio Mesa at Pacifica, one of the bigger rivalries around on the west side. Obviously, maybe similar to where the Oxnard game was a couple weeks ago, where you've got Pacifica, arguably the best they've ever been, and Rio, really struggling at 0-3 with a bunch of freshmen playing defensively because they've just been so beat up defensively. So, unless some of those stud defensive players get healthy and get on the field, it's potentially another lopsided win for Pacifica. Calabasas Agoura, I think, is a really interesting game. We haven't figured out what we're covering this weekend yet. That might be a game that we cover just because it's the Las Virgenes district rivalry game. That was the game last year where Calabasas was winning after Gavin Gay broke his leg, and George Hastings moved to quarterback and kind of led them back in a really dramatic win, really dramatic and emotional win when they lose their quarterback. So, there's some memories there for Agoura, but also, Calabasas 2-0 and has thrashed the two opponents. They've won 2 games and looked really good. So, is this the game that Calabasas wins? And then all of a sudden, they potentially argue they should be in our rankings and really taken a little bit more seriously as a potential team to win the Conejo Coast.
Coach Kroik really has scheduled kind of an emotional roller coaster for his starting quarterback, huh? Like
it's been it's been a crazy year for Gavin Gray.
A lot of storylines for him in these first non-league games.
For sure. And then Grace at Fillmore. 2 small school teams on the rise. Great quarterback play, great defensive play, 2 balanced teams. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I got to figure out who I'm going to pick in that game. What do you think?
I would pick Fillmore, but I think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a lot of offense in that game.
So Santa Paula beat Grace at the end, and that game came down to the very end.
45-34?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
So Grace had a chance to win that game, and they couldn't get off the field defensively. Santa Paula won it with their legs. Is Fillmore going to be able to, is Patterson going to be able to run the ball similar to Santa Paula? I know it's more, that's another good data point there for both those teams. And then we briefly mentioned Santa Barbara Moore Park. I think that's the best team that Moore Park's played so far, I think.
I mean, as far as we know, we're not super up to date on Bakersfield high school football teams, but
speak for yourself.
Sorry.
I covered that Centennial team 2 years ago.
Oh, fair enough.
Newbury Park boat raced them 2 years ago at Moore Park High. Incidentally, it was a weird.
That is a little
game, yeah.
But yeah,
I'm just kidding.
They're a huge, they're huge up front. I think it'll be kind of a sort of a test to my theory of my theory or note about them kind of being a team that can play lots of different ways, win with their run game, win, passing the ball, win, just with, smothering defense. It's kind of going to test that a little bit to see, if they're not able to get the ground game going, can Troy Reyes, win a game, passing the ball for them, or are they going to have to find another way to do it? But yeah, it's like we've sort of each game for us with Moore Park. I mean, they've worked their way up these rankings with these wins, and I think this will be by far the most kind of important to figuring out, what this Moorpark team is so far of their, the 4 games. And then, yes, sorry, go ahead.
There's one after this one too. I'll mention quickly, but Saugus at Hueneme, which is interesting because Hueneme coming off their rivalry win, and then Saugus has been laying waste to Ventura County. What's the stat, Tom?
Yeah, so they're 3-0, and they've beaten 3 Ventura County teams. They beat Buena, they beat Camarillo, and they beat who was the
Oak Park.
Oak Park, yes, yeah, and they they beat all those teams. Cam made it hard, but Saugus is kind of working their way through Ventura County teams, and Hueneme is like the last chance. They're the Luke Skywalker for Ventura County.
You're our only hope, Hueneme. Saugus obviously is a team that's way up this year. They've got a great running back and have caused our teams all kinds of issues, and probably a Conejo Coast level opponent for Hueneme, considering they beat Camarillo. Camarillo was up 20-7 in that game. Once again, had the quarterback playing on the torn knee ligaments. So tough, but balanced game. It came down to the very end. And one thing I want to mention that's not on the rundown is Westlake's playing Channel Islands. Channel Islands at Westlake is a game. And I think that it just shows you how quickly Westlake is able to change its fortunes, that went from a game that was scheduled to now, Channel Islands is still winless. They've struggled to score I don't think they've scored a point yet. Now they're playing a Westlake team that, Rick Clausen was chastising his team last week after winning 31-0. So the bar has been raised at Westlake. And, they're really looking like a team that is going to enter league play at 5-0. So, yeah, get your tickets for the Conejo Coast League football this year, because some of those games are going to be sellouts.
Yeah, fun little factoid / prediction from our killed bold predictions possibility for this episode is I think we're going to have 2 teams that were ranked outside of our top 15 rankings to start the season are going to finish their non-league schedule 5-0, which is pretty cool.
Which is Westlake and who?
Westlake and Fillmore. Yeah, Fillmore's got to beat Grace and Carp, I believe, is the other game that they're going to play.
So it's this week.
And
the Grace game.
Yeah. And then
and Westlake's got
CI and Venice. Yeah. So
and Venice is a decent program, but Westlake right now. Yeah, that should be that. You wasted our stat for next week, Dom.
No.
Nice.
So yeah, I think that might be all we've got for today. Let's plug.
Great job, my friend.
Thank you. Next week for me, I got some things coming out. All my cross country fans out there, you may or may not know this. I was a cross country runner and track runner myself, so got a special place in my heart for cross country. And we have our runner rankings, our top 25 rankings for boys and girls cross country runners, and our top 5 team rankings for cross country on both the boys and the girls side coming out later this week, probably. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be breaking that down likely next week on the pod. But yeah, keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for my gamer this week, TBD. I don't know where I will be yet, but I'm hoping it'll be a fun game no matter where it is. And Joe, what about yourself? What do you got cooking?
Yeah, the rankings have been posted. So check out a couple of those teams. You may want to check out those rankings this week. My notebook has a lot of stuff in it, 5 or 6 notes, very long notebook this week, which will be in Thursday's paper. It'll probably post sometime tomorrow morning, the Wednesday morning. We've got working on some flag football stuff, working on a few other stories that I won't tip, but yeah, we've went over the football stuff, but there's a couple things cooking that you're going to want to be able to access at vcstar.com. So make sure you subscribe.
There we go. Awesome, guys. Appreciate you all. Till next time. Adios.
It comes down to this for Thousand Oaks in their season. It is a gift to Martin. Martin gets the first down and more. It's a nice little screen to the left-hand side. One play and see ya later. Caldera dives into the end zone. Touchdown Oxnard. What a fitting way to end that run. He's at the 40. He's at the 20. 10.